I overheard my girlfriend laugh. Garrett is just plan B until Sterling figures his shit out. My hands shook as I stood there holding her birthday cake, realizing 8 months were built on lies. Days later, someone else told me the truth. I am 30M graphic designer, and I just had my world shattered by 7 words that revealed everything about my 8-month relationship was a lie. My girlfriend Savannah, 27F event planner, doesn't know I heard her say that I am just plan B. Little did I know when I started planning her surprise birthday party that I would end up discovering I was never her real choice. Let me back up. Savannah and I have been together for 8 months, and on the surface, everything seemed perfect. She is attentive, affectionate, talks about future plans with me. We would met through mutual friends at a networking event, and she seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me as a person, not just what I could provide. But looking back now, there were red flags I ignored, because I wanted to believe in what we had. The phone thing was the biggest one. Savannah guards her phone like it contains state secrets. She never leaves it unattended, always places it face down when we are together, and gets genuinely anxious if it is not within arm's reach. When I asked about it casually, she said she had boundary issues from a previous relationship and needed her privacy respected. Then there is social media. In 8 months together, she has never posted a single photo of us as a couple. Her Instagram is full of friend groups, work events, and aesthetic shots. But I might as well not exist in her life online. When I mentioned it, she said she preferred keeping her relationship private and didn't believe in performing love for social media. Her friend group was another issue. Despite dating for most of a year, I have never felt truly integrated into her social circle. I am invited to group events occasionally, but there is always this subtle sense that I am an outsider looking in. Her friends are polite but distant, like they are being nice to me out of obligation rather than genuine acceptance. But the biggest red flag was Sterling. Her ex-boyfriend works in finance and apparently embodies everything successful and ambitious. Sterling always said, or when Sterling and I went to, became regular parts of our conversations. She claimed they had ended things amicably and stayed loosely in touch. But the way her voice changed when she talked about him should have told me everything. Still, I convinced myself these were minor issues. Savannah talked about moving in together, discussed vacation plans for next year. I thought I was being paranoid for questioning her investment in us. 3 weeks ago, I planned a surprise birthday party for her 28th birthday. I coordinated with her best friend Raven, planned the menu around her favorite foods, even hired a photographer friend. The party was set for Saturday at my apartment. Raven would bring her over at 6 for the surprise. Around 4:30, I realized I had forgotten the custom cake. I rushed to get it and returned around 5:15 for final touches. That is when I heard voices from my kitchen. I had given Raven a key for setup, and she would brought Savannah early to grab something. They were talking with the door partially closed, completely unaware I had returned. "I just don't understand why you are still stringing him along," Raven was saying. "It has been 8 months, Save. Either you are serious about Garrett or you are not." "It is complicated," Savannah replied, her voice dismissive and calculating. "Garrett's sweet, but he is clearly plan B until Sterling figures his shit out." I froze in my hallway, cake box in my hands, as my girlfriend continued talking about me like I was a business strategy. I cannot waste my prime years just waiting around, but I am also not settling for less than what I really want. Sterling just needs time to mature and realize what he lost. But what if he never does? Raven asked. "Then I will reassess," Savannah said casually. "But if Sterling called me today and said he was ready for something serious, would I drop Garrett immediately? Obviously, Garrett's just safe, a placeholder. Someone to keep me company while I wait for the real thing." I stood there listening to the woman. I thought I was falling in love with Discuss Me, like I was a temporary convenience. Every sweet moment, every future plan we had discussed, all of it was performance while she waited for someone else. I quietly set the cake down and walked back outside, sitting in my car until I could process what I had learned. 20 minutes later, Raven texted they were heading over, and I had to pretend to be shocked and delighted when they arrived with 15 mutual friends. The next 2 hours were surreal, watching Savannah smile and kiss me and thank me for the thoughtful surprise, while knowing she saw me as a consolation prize, was one of the most isolating experiences of my life. Knox noticed something was wrong immediately. "You look like you have seen a ghost," he whispered. "I will explain later," I replied. After everyone left, Savannah stayed to clean up, talking about how perfect everything was and how lucky she felt. "Are you okay?" she asked when she noticed me being distant. I was emotionally exhausted and needed time to think. "Just tired," I said. "Long day of setup." She kissed me goodnight and left around midnight, completely unaware that I knew the truth. I barely slept, replaying every moment through this new lens. How many times had she checked her phone hoping for Sterling's text? How many "I love yous" were actually "you will do for nows"? The next morning, I called Knox and told him everything. "Dude, you have to end this," he said immediately. "You cannot stay with someone who sees you as a backup plan." "But what if I misunderstood?" "There is no misunderstanding plan B until Sterling figures his shit out," Knox replied. That is about as clear as it gets. He was right, but I needed to hear it from her directly. That evening, I went to Savannah's apartment and asked, "Am I your plan B?" Her immediate reaction told me everything. She didn't ask what I meant or seem confused. Instead, her face went pale and she said, "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" I replied. "Is it true?" What followed was an hour-long masterclass in gaslighting. First, she claimed I would misunderstood whatever I had heard. Then she insisted I was being insecure and creating problems where none existed. When those tactics failed, she minimized it by saying everyone has unresolved feelings from past relationships. "But I am choosing you," she kept saying. "I am here with you, aren't I?" "The past does matter when you are actively waiting for it to become your future," I replied. Finally, she partially admitted the truth. "Okay, yes, I still have feelings for Sterling, but I am trying to move on. I am building something real with you." "You are not building anything real with me," I said. "You are using me as an emotional safety net while you wait for someone else to want you." "Relationships are complicated," she protested. "You cannot expect me to just turn off feelings for someone I loved for 3 years. "I don't expect you to turn off feelings," I replied. "I expect you not to date other people while you work through them." The conversation went in circles for 20 minutes, with Savannah alternating between denial, minimization, and attempts to make me feel guilty for not understanding her emotional complexity. But I had already made my decision. "I am not going to be anyone's plan B," I told her. "I deserve to be with someone who chooses me enthusiastically, not reluctantly. We are done." "I am not going to be anyone's plan B," I told her. "I deserve to be with someone who chooses me enthusiastically, not reluctantly. We are done." The panic in her eyes was immediate and genuine. Suddenly, all her casual dismissiveness disappeared, and she was fighting to keep me in her life. "You are making a huge mistake," she said, tears starting to form. "We are good together. I do care about you. Caring about me and wanting me are two different things," I replied. "You care about me because I am useful, but you don't actually want me." I left her apartment that night feeling simultaneously heartbroken and relieved. 8 months of my life had been built on a foundation of deception, but at least now I knew the truth. Little did I know that within a week, the universe would provide perfect confirmation that I had made the right choice. Update 1: The universe has a sense of humor. And sometimes, karma works faster than you expect. Sterling apparently figured his shit out exactly 1 week after our breakup, and the results were exactly what you would expect from someone who treats relationships like strategic investments. Savannah didn't take the breakup well, which told me everything about how much she had been taking my stability for granted. She started calling and texting constantly, alternating between apologies and attempts to convince me I was overreacting. "I never said you were plan B," she insisted in one voicemail, despite me literally hearing those exact words. "You are twisting my conversation with Raven." The gaslighting attempts were incredible. She tried to rewrite the entire conversation, claiming she had been talking about her emotional growth process. According to her revised version, calling me clearly plan B until Sterling figures his shit out was actually a compliment about how I was helping her heal. Knox was fascinated by the psychological gymnastics. "She is actually trying to convince you that calling you a placeholder was a declaration of love," he observed. "That is some next-level manipulation." But the real confirmation came from Savannah's sister Phoenix, who reached out 3 days after the breakup to apologize. She had known about Savannah's Sterling situation the entire time, and felt guilty for not warning me. "I watched you plan that party and put so much thought into making her happy, and I felt sick knowing she was just using you as a placeholder," Phoenix explained when we met for coffee. Phoenix filled in devastating details. Savannah had been in contact with Sterling much more than she had admitted. They texted regularly, had dinner as friends twice during our relationship, and she had even asked Phoenix about timing for when Sterling might be ready for commitment. She had this whole theory that Sterling just needed to sow his wild oats for a year or two before settling down, Phoenix told me, and she was determined to be available when he decided he was ready. The most disturbing revelation: dating me had been a deliberate strategy. Savannah had specifically chosen someone safe and stable to keep her emotionally occupied while she waited for Sterling. She actually said she needed someone low drama who wouldn't demand too much emotional investment. Phoenix revealed, someone who would be grateful for her attention and not ask too many questions. That conversation was both devastating and liberating. It confirmed nothing about our relationship had been genuine on her part, but removed any doubt about my decision to end things. But the real karma delivery came exactly 1 week after our breakup. Sterling called Savannah. According to Phoenix, Sterling reached out saying he had been thinking about their connection and wanted to explore possibilities. Savannah was thrilled, convinced her strategy had finally paid off. She dropped all pretense immediately. The desperate calls to me stopped, and suddenly her entire world revolved around rekindling things with Sterling. They went out for drinks that Friday, had dinner the following Tuesday. By the second week, Savannah was telling friends that she and Sterling were figuring things out, and she had never been happier. Phoenix watched with growing concern. She was acting like a completely different person, she told me. All bubbly and obsessive, checking her phone constantly, planning her whole schedule around his availability. But Sterling hadn't called because he had suddenly realized he wanted commitment. He had called because he was between casual situations and remembered that Savannah had always been willing to provide attention with minimal effort on his part. For 3 weeks, Savannah lived in Fantasyland, convinced she was finally getting her real relationship. She started talking about moving in together, discussed vacation plans, even called Sterling her boyfriend again. Sterling went along with it just enough to get what he wanted: dinner dates that ended at his place, weekend mornings together. Enough relationship-adjacent behavior to keep Savannah invested. Then, just as suddenly as he had reappeared, Sterling disappeared again. No dramatic breakup conversation, no explanation. He simply stopped responding to texts, stopped making plans, and moved on to whatever other situation had caught his interest. Savannah was devastated, not just disappointed, completely shattered in a way that revealed how much of her self-worth had been tied up in winning Sterling's commitment. According to Phoenix, Savannah spent days calling Sterling's phone, showing up at places she knew he would be, and eventually embarrassing herself by confronting him at his office building. He told her flat out that he wasn't looking for anything serious, and thought she understood that. Phoenix related. He acted like she was being crazy for expecting commitment after 3 weeks of casual dating. The irony was perfect. Savannah had used me as an emotional placeholder while she waited for Sterling, and Sterling had used her as a physical placeholder while he looked for someone else. The woman who had kept me as her backup plan suddenly found herself with no backup plan at all. Meanwhile, my life had dramatically improved since removing the relationship uncertainty. I had thrown myself into a major design project at work and landed the biggest contract of my career, a year-long campaign for a tech startup that I never would have had the bandwidth to pursue while managing Savannah's emotional unavailability. My coworker Ivy, the creative director I had always had good professional chemistry with, had started joining me for lunch and coffee breaks. What began as work conversations evolved into genuine personal connection, and I was remembering what it felt like to interact with someone who was actually interested in getting to know me as a person. "You seem lighter," Knox observed during one of our weekend hangouts. "Like you are not carrying around someone else's emotional baggage anymore." He was right. I hadn't realized how much energy I had been spending trying to earn enthusiasm from someone who was fundamentally unavailable. Without that constant underlying tension, I felt like myself again. Update 24 months later, and the contrast between my life and Savannah's couldn't be more stark. Sometimes the universe provides perfect examples of what happens when you treat people like disposable placeholders. First, let me update you on my situation, because it has been genuinely incredible. That work project I mentioned, it led to 3 more major contracts and a promotion to senior designer. My boss specifically mentioned that my renewed focus and creative energy had been noticed by multiple clients. Turns out, Not spending emotional bandwidth on someone who fundamentally doesn't want you frees up a lot of mental space for actual priorities. More importantly, Ivy and I have been officially dating for 2 months now, and the difference between genuine connection and strategic placeholding is night and day. Ivy actively wants to spend time with me, enthusiastically includes me in her social circle, and posts photos of us together without me having to ask. She talks about future plans that include me because she actually wants me in her future, not because she needs someone to fill time until her real choice becomes available. I cannot imagine treating someone I am dating like a backup plan, she said when I eventually told her the full Savannah story. If I am with someone, it is because I chose them specifically, not because they are convenient while I wait for someone else. The contrast with Savannah's approach was so stark it made me realize how fundamentally wrong my previous relationship had been from the beginning. Speaking of Savannah, the karma train has continued rolling with impressive consistency. After Sterling discarded her for the second time, Savannah apparently went through what Phoenix described as a complete meltdown. She had spent so much energy maintaining the fantasy that Sterling was her soulmate that facing the reality of his emotional unavailability sent her into a spiral. But instead of using the experience to develop self-awareness, Savannah doubled down on her manipulative approach to relationships. According to mutual friends, she started dating again within a month. But her behavior had become increasingly desperate and transparent. She has lost all subtlety. Our mutual friend, Jake, told me when I ran into him at a networking event. She is literally telling guys on first dates about her high standards and how she is not looking to waste time on anything casual. The problem was that word had gotten around about her pattern of treating people as placeholders. Phoenix had apparently reached her limit with Savannah's behavior and started being more honest with friends about what had happened with me and Sterling. I couldn't watch her do to other people what she did to you, Phoenix explained during one of our occasional coffee catch-ups. She was already talking about this new guy, Marcus, like he was perfect relationship material while still crying about Sterling. Same exact pattern. The dating scene in our city is smaller than you would think, especially among professionals in their late 20s and early 30s. Savannah's reputation as someone who keeps backup plans and maintains emotional unavailability started preceding her. Several guys had started comparing notes and realized they would all heard the same stories about her complicated feelings for an ex. Her professional life took a hit too. Event planning relies heavily on personal reputation and word-of-mouth referrals. When your personal life becomes a cautionary tale about manipulation and emotional instability, it affects how clients perceive your ability to handle their important events. She lost 2 major wedding contracts when the brides heard gossip about her relationship drama and decided they didn't want that energy associated with their special day. In an industry where trust and emotional stability are crucial, having a reputation for manipulative behavior is career poison. The breaking point came when Raven, her best friend who had accidentally revealed the truth about me being Plan B, finally confronted Savannah about her pattern of behavior. I told her she needed therapy and to stop using people as emotional placeholders, Phoenix related. Raven felt guilty about her role in the situation with you and couldn't watch Savannah keep doing the same thing to other people. Instead of self-reflection, Savannah responded by cutting off Raven and accusing her of sabotaging her relationships out of jealousy. She convinced herself that everyone who criticized her behavior was simply jealous of her high standards and unwilling to understand her complex emotional needs. The last I heard, she was single, struggling professionally, and had alienated most of her close friends. Even her own sister had started limiting contact because Savannah had become exhausting and manipulative in all her relationships, not just romantic ones. Meanwhile, Sterling had moved on completely and was apparently in a serious relationship with someone new. According to social media, he would met someone who shared his interests and lifestyle, and they would become exclusive within a month. The commitment-phobic ex who had strung Savannah along for years had simply needed to find someone he actually wanted to be with. The irony was perfect. Savannah had spent years believing Sterling just needed time to figure his shit out, when the reality was that he had never wanted her specifically. He had just been using her as a placeholder until he found someone who genuinely excited him. 3 weeks ago, I ran into Savannah at a coffee shop downtown. She looked tired and stressed, and the conversation was as awkward as you would expect. She asked about my life, and I mentioned the promotion and relationship with Ivy. "That is great," she said, but her voice carried a note of what sounded like regret. "I am happy for you." There was a pause, and then she said, "I have been thinking a lot about how things ended between us. I realize I might have handled some things poorly." It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of her behavior I had ever heard from her, though even then, she couldn't bring herself to take full responsibility. "I hope you find what you are looking for," I replied, and I meant it. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because holding on to resentment wasn't serving me. As I walked away from that conversation, I felt genuinely grateful for how everything had unfolded. Discovering I was someone's plan B had been devastating at the time, but it had ultimately led me to understand my own worth and find someone who chose me enthusiastically from the beginning. Final update. I am writing this update from the apartment Ivy and I just moved into, 8 months after learning I was someone's plan B. The difference between life now and during the Savannah mess could be greater. It taught me to see the value of genuine connection over being a placeholder. 3 weeks ago, I proposed to Ivy. She said yes, instantly, called her family within the hour, and her joy was so natural it reminded me how forced things had felt with Savannah. Ivy later told me, "Choosing someone means choosing them completely, not reluctantly." My career has thrived without the emotional drain. My agency offered me a partnership track, and I've been featured in 2 publications. Knox, who will be my best man, put it best. "You never once doubted Ivy wanted you. That's what a healthy relationship looks like." Meanwhile, Savannah's life has unraveled. She cycled through short relationships, always pining after men like Sterling. The clearest moment came when she ignored her boyfriend Marcus at a party to chase Sterling's attention. Marcus left quietly and ended things the next day. Savannah spun it as proof of her passion, but really it showed her inability to build healthy attachments. Her career collapsed for the same reason event planning requires focus and trust, neither of which survived her constant personal drama. She is currently working for a much smaller company at a significantly lower salary, and even there her position is reportedly unstable due to ongoing interpersonal issues with colleagues. The social isolation became complete when even Raven, her former best friend, started warning other friends about Savannah's pattern of using people as emotional placeholders. The friend group that had once enabled her behavior began recognizing it as toxic and manipulative. Phoenix told me that family gatherings have become awkward because Savannah consistently presents herself as a victim of other people's inability to understand her complex emotional needs. She has never taken responsibility for treating multiple people as backup plans, instead blaming everyone else for being judgmental or jealous of her standards. As I write this, I am looking at engagement photos Ivy and I took last weekend. Images full of genuine joy and mutual excitement about our future together. We are planning a wedding where everyone invited will be celebrating our actual choice to commit to each other, not watching us settle for convenient placeholders.